So let's get started. I'm going to call the meeting of the Stony Brook Council, to order. As you know, we by law we need to meet 4 times a year. So we meet in February and May, and October and December. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Chris Hahn to lead us.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so here in person, it's me and Chris Hahn. On the Zoom, I see Frank Trotta and Margot Garant, as well as Brenda, and Brenda Anderson. But Brenda doesn't add to a quorum, so we need one more member here for a quorum. So I'm going to pause on the approval of the minutes until Linda and/or Karen join us, which should be momentarily. As I said, Father Alex and Errol Toulon are out of town, so I know they won't be with us today. Before we get going, I'll ask, starting with our provost, to introduce ourselves around the horn.
Morning, everyone. Carl Lesley, Provost.
Bill Wertheim, Executive Vice President of Health Sciences and Stony Brook Medicine.
Hi, Jed Shivers, Senior VP, Finance and Administration.
Morning, Braden Hosh, Interim Chief Deputy to the President and Vice President for Education and Institutional Effectiveness.
Rick Ghetto, Vice President for Student Affairs.
Good morning, Larry Zacharias, Vice President for Enterprise Risk Management, Chief Security Officer.
Hi, Wendy Pearson, Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Executive Director of Stony Brook Council.
Kevin Gardner, Vice President for Research.
Good morning.
Simeon Adams, Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer.
Susan Foley, Interim Vice President, Marketing Communications.
Scott Barrett, Interim Vice President for University Advancement.
Jackie Weissman, Interim Chief Campus Counselor. Carol Films, CEO and Chief Operating Officer, Stony Brook University.
Patrick Larkin, School Town West. Bruce Cubey, UUP Chapter President, Stony Brook Health Science Center.
Luis Melius, President, UUP Campus.
Rachel.
Rachel Kavanaugh, Executive Assistant to the Chief Deputy to the President for President.
And we have a special guest from one of our finest local newspapers in town.
I'm Leah Denayev, Editor and Publisher of the Times, speaking for active newspapers in Secaucus, the best community newspapers.
Oh, the best. I only said the finest. It's one of the finest. So, okay, we'll go with the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. And Linda Arman has joined us. So, Linda, thank you. So we now have a quorum. So the first item of business is to approve the minutes of December 9th, as well as a special meeting that I'll refer to on January 21st. And so I'll move them. Chris Hahn seconds them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. The minutes are approved. So I have 2 updates for us. So as you know, for the last 6.5 months, I think, I've been leading a search for a new president for our institution. And happy to report that the committee finished its work in mid-January, and that the council held a special meeting in executive session on January 21st. And by SUNY regulations, we were directed to submit 3 names for consideration to SUNY for their approval. It was very clever on the council's part. I asked for permission from the chancellor to also add an alternate. And so we recommended 3 names plus an alternate. And that worked out to our favor because one of the candidates withdrew and accepted an offer from another institution. So there are currently 3 candidates pending before SUNY, and they've been meeting with them and interviewing them, and no decision has been made, and we're hopeful that SUNY will be making a decision very soon. Could be this week, could be next week, but that's all I know. the smoke will come from the chimney and soon. But I want to thank everybody who either served on the search committee or who participated in the on-campus meetings with all the candidates in a very relatively short period of time. So that's where we are. And again, it's up to SUNY. The SUNY board will make the final decision. So that is where we are with the search. And then the only other item I wanted to raise, and Dick, I'm sure you and Braden and your team are all over it, but to the extent you're not, I think it would be a really good idea. I'm not going to be partisan in any way, but with all of the new, I'll call them initiatives emanating out of Washington, and the either the decisions already made to slash research funding from NIH or cut other funding for higher ed, or to change our DEI policies, or to impact our student athletes as it relates to Title IX and as it may relate to immigration and the recruitment of international students to our campus. The list goes on, and then the potential arrest of undocumented individuals at our hospital. So many things that are happening in Washington impact how we do things and conduct business here. And I think it would be a very useful exercise for us to try to quantify what the impact could be to funding, to our students, and to our to jobs on campus. And then because we're part of a larger system, and I'm sure you and your team are all over this, but we need to coordinate with SUNY. We need to all be speaking with one voice as a system, as there are federal efforts underway that could negatively impact our institution. And then I think that information that you guys will put together would be useful to share with our congressional delegation. And because I know they care about this place at Stony Brook, and they need to understand, while some things sound great, yeah, okay, we're going to slash fraud, waste, and abuse, we're going to cut and reduce spending here, people need to be aware of what the potential impacts are to this institution. So again, I share all that, not to be partisan in any way, but to make sure that we are aware of what the fiscal impact could be to our institution with all these things coming out of Washington. So I'll end with that, and maybe that's a segue into some of the things that you might share with us.
It is indeed, Kevin. I'm going to speak at some length to the issues that you raised. I just want to start by saying you gave a very good summary of the things that we are concerned about. We're monitoring them closely. We have less definitive information than I would like, but as you say, we are coordinating very closely with SUNY. There's got to be a comprehensive State University of New York response to these issues. And so my team and I are in touch with folks at SUNY literally every day. I'll have more to say about the specific issues you raised. But let me turn first to the New York State budget. The governor issued her executive budget a few weeks ago, and in at least one respect, it's very good. The operating budget that she proposed is basically what we asked for from SUNY. It includes the third year of an increase that the research universities received over the previous 2 years, and in addition includes all the funds that we'll need to pay our previously negotiated faculty and staff salary increases. So the operating budget's good. On the capital facilities side, not so good. SUNY had asked for $800 million for the 4 research universities, presumably 200 each, although that wasn't determined. The governor came up with a far smaller number, 200 million. And so my and our advocacy in Albany is going to be based on capital facilities. As you've heard me say before, capital facilities needs at Stony Brook are very great. In my time here, I've been shocked by how inadequately New York has funded our higher education institutions for the facilities thereof. And as I meet with legislators, and I'll be having meetings tomorrow, for example, that's going to be the focus of my effort. Tomorrow I'm meeting, among others, with the chair of the House,
Assembly.
both the Assembly, excuse me, the Assembly chair of the Higher Ed Committee and the Senate chair of the Higher Ed Committee, among others, and capital facilities will be my focus. Let me turn to the federal landscape, which Kevin gave a very nice summary of. I think the headline is it's a dynamic environment, to say the least. Things come out and they're rescinded. Lawsuits are filed whose effect we do not know, and we're watching it very, very closely in coordination with SUNY. Chancellor King has eloquently expressed the need for a unified State University of New York response to these issues, and we wholly agree. As I said before, my team is in touch with both the Chancellor. I'm in touch with the Chancellor and with their counterparts up in Albany every day. The most recent challenge that we face is the announcement on Friday that F&A payments associated with our NIH awards would be capped at 15%. Our normal university rate is 59%, so the reduction from 59 to 15 is pretty serious. We're lucky today. Kevin Gardner, our Vice President for Research and Innovation, is going to be giving a report on research, and I know that he will touch further on that. We're in close communication with SUNY about how to deal with it. It would be pretty bad in our School of Medicine and elsewhere. We have significant funding from the NIH. That funding is crucial to advances in medical care and health care, and the cut of that magnitude would be devastating. The overhead, the F&A that we receive is not just free money. It is money that is essential to paying for the facilities in which research goes on and for the administration of that research. It's not just here, take this extra money. So we need it badly, and we're going to be working hard on that. In alignment with SUNY. The other executive orders are also concerning. I won't mention them all, but certainly the challenge to DEI is very real. We're looking closely at our programs. The goal being to assure that in no way are we violating federal anti-discrimination laws. I doubt we are, but we're fine-tooth combing every order and practice and policy related to DEI to make sure that we are not. So far, we haven't received anything in particular to change, but we're alert. We're highly alert to that. Kevin, you mentioned as well immigration. It's a concern. It's a concern for some of our students who may be undocumented, and a concern for our international students. We are in the absence of information about how the new federal directives are going to affect Stony Brook. We're doing everything we can to reassure our students of our support. In the event that federal agents concerning immigration would come onto the campus, we would everyone in a position to meet them, so to speak, knows to call the campus police and knows the limitations upon which they can act. They'll need a judicial court order to do whatever they wish to do. There's differences of opinion over whether Stony Brook is likely to be a target for immigration agents. My own hunch, and I hope I'm right, is that we're pretty far off the distant path, and that they have other more tempting targets. But that doesn't necessarily assuage the feelings and the concerns of our students. So we're doing everything we can to assure them that we'll have their back.
So, we'll let the record reflect that we've been joined by Councilmember Karen Kehoe. Karen, Dick is going through what the proposed federal cuts to higher ed and their other proposals floating out there and how it may impact Stony Brook.
And in fact, thank you, Kevin. Karen, welcome. It's nice to see you virtually, or in principle virtually.
Yeah, this is my life right now, dealing with what's coming out of Washington, and I know even over the weekend there was a lot of conversation about NIH and the funding and how that would impact institutions like Stony Brook Hospital. So it's something we're following very closely and working with SUNY Central on. But if there's something specific to the campus, we're also happy to work with you directly.
Great, thank you, Karen.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
The lab, so the lab is actually a federal lab, isn't it?
Brookhaven National,
Brookhaven, yeah, and we have oversight of the lab, so how does that impact us?
Well, I think
Because that, I would think,
we should add that to the mix, Kevin and Dick. So the cuts, those financial cuts would be not a direct impact to us,
Right,
but it will impact the lab and then impact our responsibility.
I
Yeah.
just want to understand what the direct and indirect reflection is to the university.
And many of our faculty do their work at the lab.
Right,
Kevin, either now or when you make your remarks, you want to address the impact on Brookhaven?
thank you.
Okay, yeah, during his report. So why don't you
yeah,
continue
let's
then?
do it that way. Okay.
Thank you.
So, in summary, we recognize the frustration that the new federal directives carry. We have far too little information about the actual effects upon Stony Brook. Probably the most direct one is the cut to the FNA limit, the FNA cap for NIH funding. There are areas where we're watching carefully. We're coordinating with SUNY, we're consulting our legal counsel, and doing everything we can to maintain a supportive environment in which those who may feel at risk know, as I said before, that we'll have their backs. I want to, knowing that this subject will be continued when Kevin makes his report, and for that matter, if there are legal questions, Jackie Weissman is here. Jackie Weissman's one of the people I want to introduce. She is the interim chief general campus counsel. She succeeds Suzanne Shane, who has been called to an assignment at a legal assignment, working at SUNY Central. So Jackie, welcome. Jackie's been at Stony Brook for a long time, so she really doesn't need to be welcomed. Braden Hosh has succeeded Justin Fincher as interim chief deputy to the president. He's now doing two jobs. He works about 18 hours a day. I know, because about 16 of them are for me. So Braden is in that role in addition to his existing role as Vice President for Educational and Institutional Effectiveness. Braden was the one who led us brilliantly through the most recent Middle States accreditation. So I'm pleased to welcome two new members of my team. I want to just mention one other subject. Everyone connected with Stony Brook knows that housing is one of our challenges. We have too few beds for our students, including our undergraduate and graduate students. And on our Southampton campus, we would like to provide some workforce housing, especially for those associated with healthcare in that area. So there's two pieces of relatively good news. We're on track to complete or nearly complete the construction of 472 beds on the Stony Brook campus for undergraduates. These will be prefabricated facilities, but in spite of that word, these are facilities that are designed to last for 50 years, basically the same length as any other residence hall. It's been a back and forth, lots of bureaucracy. But at the moment, we have scored some breakthroughs, including the approval to spend the money that's needed. And we'll be signing a contract with those who will produce those prefab modules. And if all goes well, they will be delivered to campus in the spring. We've already prepared the ground. All the infrastructure stuff is ready to receive them. And we should be able to have 472 new beds for the fall. If there's some delay in delivering the prefab, we might only have 250 at the beginning of the fall, and then the others would come online.
And these are the units that Bill Herman shared with us at our last meeting.
That is correct.
Correct.
That's correct. It's just further on track.
And they'll be for undergrad?
These are undergrad.
Undergrad
right.
dormitory space,
Yeah.
modular units.
Correct. We need graduate student housing too, and so there's a phase 2 of that project also on the Stony Brook campus that will yield new housing by the fall of 2027. Those will include a mix of undergraduate units, traditional undergraduate units, and also units with kitchens for graduate students. Okay. Other piece of housing good news concerns an effort long underway in coordination with DASNY, the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, and in due course with a P3 partner to build housing on the Stony Brook campus, probably just this side of the railroad station. Housing for graduate and undergraduate students, possibly workforce housing too. Those details have not been worked out. And on the first floor, student-friendly commercial establishments. Also through the DASNY P3 avenue, we're working on housing on the Southampton campus. That would be for the most part for healthcare workforce housing. Back and forth, these things do not come easily. but we've had good news on both in the last couple of weeks. So a mission critical need for Stony Brook University is on the pathway to some fulfillment. That completes my report.
Good, thanks, Dick. And on the housing with the DASD P3, that would also be on the main campus?
Yes.
And have we identified potential sites that might be suitable there too?
Yes, we're looking, but the site has not been firmly identified. But basically, we're looking at this campus just this side of the Stony Brook Railroad Station, where there are now parking lots and trees.
And again, those would be for both undergrad and grad dormitory space?
Correct. And a layer of commercial establishments on the bottom.
Good luck with that. Keep us posted on the current one underway. Maybe by the spring meeting we could have an update, and hopefully they're in the process of being installed.
Bill Herman and Jed and Rick Guteau, our Vice President for Student Affairs, are on this one every day because they know our students need beds to sleep in.
Great. And while we're talking about beds, what's going on with the cleanup of the dormitories that got destroyed by the late August storm on your second day in the job?
They're both back online. One came back online at the beginning of by the end of the fall semester. The other by the beginning of the spring semester.
So students are back in there.
Yes, students are back
Awesome.
in there. It's and our Division of Student Affairs and our facilities guys did an amazing job. First, the Division of Student Affairs, right after the storm, providing beds for all of those who didn't have beds in the dorms that were unoccupiable, mainly by tripling up students. Those triples have all been gone back to doubles. And our facilities people by cleaning out particularly the basements where water accumulated. So many surfaces have been hard surfaced in that part of the campus that, as we saw back in 2021 and again on August 19th, 2024, water has nowhere to go except into the basement of those residence halls. There are significantly expensive long-term solutions are needed for this problem.
And are we coordinating with the county or with the governor's office on FEMA reimbursement for that work? And are we eligible?
We are coordinating, but we worry about FEMA reimbursement both because our hospital is so far in arrears and getting reimbursed by FEMA, and because it is our anticipation that the tragic fires in Los Angeles are going to gobble up a lot of FEMA money. So yes, we're in communication. We're going to try to get it. County executive has our back with respect to reimbursing Stony Brook, but the check hasn't come in the mail yet.
I heard somebody wants to get rid of FEMA.
Yeah,
as
don't
well.
hold your breath.
So, all right. Well, thanks for the report, Dick. Does anybody have any questions in person or online for Dick? All right. Hearing none. Thank you very much. As I said, we only have two items. No votes need to be taken today, but we have two interesting presentations. First one is going to be Kevin Gardner, who's going to give us an update on research operations here. And Kevin joined us middle of last year?
Yep.
Good. So, Kev, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us where you were before here, and what your role is here.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I came here from University of Louisville. I was Executive Vice President for Research and Innovation at University of Louisville for 4 years, and before that, I was at the University of New Hampshire for 20 years, and I left there as Vice Provost for Research. And then, so I've been here since June 10th as Vice President for Research, and now we've renamed our division Research and Innovation, so I'm Vice President of Research and Innovation at this point. Although changing things like organizations at Stony Brook is like turning a large ship in the, out in the ocean or something like that. It takes a few miles, so it'll be a little time, but that's what I'm going with.
Kevin, with apologies for interrupting, can you explain why you wanted, and I certainly supported, the addition of the word innovation to your office?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about the innovation part, but essentially we had, when I got here, we had an Office of the Vice President for Research, and we had an Office of Economic Development. And supposedly they were joined and they were reporting up to this office, but we didn't really have them integrated. And the role of a university in economic development is largely through innovation, the innovation it provides and helps companies with. So it's really an innovation play that we have in the economy, and less so, for example, other important parts of economic development, which could be like tourism, right, or wineries, or things like that. So we might not have a lot of direct influence or role in spurring economic development through the winery business, but we would help those wineries when they're developing new modalities of making wine, or something like that, right? New types of fermentation, or whatever. So it's really the technology and the innovation that then spurs economic growth. That's really the role of a university in the economic development space. So that was the genesis. I put this presentation together before Friday afternoon, as requested by Rachel, and I got it in early. I felt, and I got a lot of kudos from that, so I felt really good. But then, NIH came out with their announcement afterwards. So I'll just say a couple of remarks since you asked me to talk about that. So F&A costs, or finance and administration costs, from that a university has on most federal contracts and other contracts from the state and so forth. And those pay for things like buildings to do research in, HVAC systems, right? All of that stuff that you have to do research with. The administrative part, which is largely in place to comply with federal laws around research security, around allowable costs and things like that. So there's a large infrastructure needed in order to be able to do federal work, and that gets paid for through those F&A charges. And so if we don't have those, we don't have any mechanism to pay for those people. And it's really hard to put those on a grant, because I'm on a grant. I'm like, okay, now I have to include, I need this space for 4 hours a day. And how much does this space cost? How much heating is going to happen? How much electricity am I going to use? You can't do that, right? You can't have that. And so they allow this bundling together. We just finished our most recent F&A rate negotiation with the overseeing organization, with the Department of Health and Human Services, about 2 weeks ago. And our rate is set at the same rate that it has been, 59.5%. We engaged Congressman Loda's office and Senator Schumer's office in that rate negotiation, so they're well aware of the importance of that for paying for those things that are needed to conduct research. The impact from I don't have a whole kind of statement impact, but in the month of January, if we had the new 15% cap in place, it would have resulted in about an $8 million hit to the university in the month of January. So that gives you a sense of what that impact would be. It's not small. So that's my F&A explainer. If there's any questions, I'm happy to weigh in on that. I guess I would say, right now it's pretty early. That came out on the end of the day on Friday. It's Monday morning at 9:30. There's a Research Foundation meeting right now that started at 9:30 to talk about this. So it's early. I expect that there will be court action coming today. And we'll see how that rolls out. And just like we saw with a lot of other types of actions that have come out, there have been stays and so forth. So I expect that would happen. And we're working with all of our cognizant representative organizations, like the Association of American Medical Colleges, like APLU and AAU and Council on Government Relations, and on down the line, who help us collectively as universities across the country advocate for these things. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the change in the name of the office, Research and Innovation. I have a few stats about where we are as a research university. These are our research expenditures. This is how we kind of measure how much, and compare ourselves to others, essentially. It's like, how much do you spend on research? So it's not, the awards go up and down every year, but the expenditures are more consistent. So in FY24, we ended the year at $319 million. That's a little bit down. Last year was $324 million, largely more than explained by the extra pay period in FY23. So there's a little inside baseball. But we're about steady at that amount currently. And this shows how much is coming from the federal government, how much is coming from the institution, the state and local governments, business, nonprofits, and then other sources. So the federal government is obviously an important part of our research portfolio.
What is that number? The federal government makes up, 60%, or is that?
Here it is. This is the federal government, 186 million out of 320 million. Jed, can you do that math immediately in your head? it's a significant fraction. So this shows our where the money comes from within the federal government. So HHS is primarily the NIH, where the majority of that funding comes through, but some comes through other channels, CDC and so forth. National Science Foundation, Department of Energy. So back to the question about how will this impact our research. So this is not funds that flow through Brookhaven necessarily, but some of it may be in collaboration, and certainly Brookhaven is an important partner in that. So this is a very strong Department of Energy portfolio. We have, outsized, compared to our other, if you compare us to other universities, we have a really strong Department of Energy research portfolio. So, it remains to be seen what the impact of any of the agency guidelines and so forth that have been coming out are going to have. But it's not going to have it likely won't have a direct significant impact on our research funding.
So most of DOE's money goes to B&L, but Stony Brook gets a decent sized, pot of money from DOE here.
That's right.
Got it.
And this would be Stony Brook, largely independent of Brookhaven, perhaps in collaboration with Brookhaven. So there could be some relationship there, but it's not flowing from Brookhaven to Stony Brook.
And Kev, I don't know if you heard it. I think it just came out Thursday night, but former Brookhaven supervisor just became the White House liaison to the Department of Energy. So somebody who knows Stony Brook, knows B&L, he is now at DOE in a liaison role. So somebody who we'll have to introduce you to.
That's great. Yeah, we do have many of those types of relationships. That's a great additional one that I was not aware of.
Is he a good person? Well, is it this?
We keep close track of where we are every month of the year, and so this gives you a snapshot of where we are in FY25. Our expenditures are up about 10%, our federal, state, local, and so forth expenditures. So we'll see. I don't know if it's going to lead to 350 million, but it'll be on all of our external expenditures from external sources are up about 10%. So it's trending positively for this year, and we're halfway through this year. So I want to just back up a little bit and just say we have a strategy for increasing research here at Stony Brook. And so here are some of the elements of that strategy. So the first one is hire and retain faculty. Okay, faculty are the engines of the research and innovation enterprise 100%. And so it all comes down to having really good, productive faculty who are in the game and who want to be here and who stay here. And so it doesn't help us when they leave. So we want to, people are going to leave for a lot of good reasons. We don't want them to leave for reasons like the facilities are falling apart, for example, just as completely random example. So we have a part of our strategy is going after larger grant opportunities as a way of doing business. I'll talk a little bit more about this. Understanding where we have an unfair advantage and position ourselves for success. So where do we have real strengths that other people don't have? So for example, our relationship with Brookhaven National Lab is a special relationship that positions us in a certain way that we should be taking advantage of. Engage federal agencies more strategically. We have hired a partner in Washington, D.C., McAllister and Quinn, a lobbying firm to help us do this. And we already talked about Lauren Brookmeyer being there. So we have more capacity to do that now. Serve business and industry better. We are kind of near the bottom with respect to our funding from business and industry. And so there's a lot of room to grow there. And that's important. I would say it's important because of my value system. It's important, but it's also important strategically because the more that we diversify our income sources, the better off we're going to be for our research. Do more defense-related work. I'll talk a little bit more about this. That's another place where we have opportunity to grow. Use internal funding in a strategic way to grow research, and then build a stronger funding profile in medicine and biotech, because if we want to double research, we're never going to do it without that.
Kevin, could you go back to
Use internal funding strategically to grow research. Just say a few sentences about the specific investments you're making with that funding.
Yeah, so I will. So they're myriad. I'm going to talk a little bit about seed grants, which are grants that we provide for funding in certain areas. So I'll give you an example. So right on Friday afternoon, we had a meeting with a strategy that started a year ago for a competition where the proposals are due sometime, I think it's this summer. So we're about a year and a half ahead of a new grant opportunity. We got faculty together around this materials research, science, and engineering centers. They're big centers. We have a really great people in material science across a number of different departments. And then part of that is they received seed grant funds to advance their concepts that they put in place to say, this is how we're going to position ourselves for this, what's called a MRSIC award. So that we had this event on Friday afternoon, and now we're going to partner an external grant writing team up with these faculty groups who are going after this MRSIC to help them be positioned better. And then we're going to make a decision in the coming months about who are the best teams that are going to go after this MRSIC, and the proposals due this summer. And they're going to get a lot of support from our office that supports large grant proposals and this external entity. One of the reasons why we think that, and there's a lot of other reasons, but major grants, a lot of institutions have a strategy for growing major grants as a way to grow the overall research expenditures. And so they're high risk, high reward. They require more infrastructure to put in place to go after them, but they have a big payoff in longer periods of more stable funding. So this shows, there's a lot of business over here, but I would say the bottom line is that in this fiscal year, the top 1.5% of all of our awards, which is the top 25 awards, are responsible for 23% of all of our expenditures. So big awards matter. This shows our trajectory in big awards. It might be hard to see, but there's a big difference between 2021 and 2025 in terms of this number. This is about double the number, 2x our expenditures on big awards.
What's a big award, like over 10 million?
Yeah, like that. Yeah. Yeah, and we could like in this case, we just said top 1.5% in terms of size. But in general, we think about it that way, even though they're not always that big. They could be 5 million or something like that, or more than $1 million a year. This shows our number of proposals that are over 10 million over time. So, it has increased from the pandemic time. These are the seed awards. I talked about these with the MRSIC grant, but overall, we've invested over the last 5 years a significant amount of money in seed grant awards, and the return on those investments is more than 9 to 1 in the kind of brief period of follow-up that we have for those awards. So when people get an award, it's specific to say we need to do some work in order to get the next grant application out and be competitive. And so we look at those grant applications and say, okay, we gave you $50,000 to gather some more data so that you can get this large award. And this shows that there's a strong return on that investment. We focus and keep track of our faculty losses and the impact that has. And I'll just say, when we lose productive research faculty, it hurts. So this shows something like, we've lost about 2 to 3% of our research expenditures on an annual basis in recent years from faculty losses. Hopefully this looks like a downward trend in that. It's never going to stop completely, but we want to understand why faculty leave, and we want to try to ameliorate that happening. In addition to all of those mechanisms, there's been a strong focus on being strategic about where Stony Brook has real strength on a national stage. And so there were a number of Tiger teams that were pulled together in all of these different topic areas. And they really did a deep dive analysis of what kind of strength do we have in, quantum information science, for example. And it's not all of quantum. It's like what assets, who are the faculty, what are the grants, what are the unique facilities that we have, what does the funding landscape for quantum look like in the future, do we think? And so they're really strong reports that help position us in all of these important areas. And some of these there's a lot more detail than I'm showing on here. For example, in the biotech Tiger teams, there was subsequent Tiger teams with the breakout in, I don't even know, 10 or 15 different areas of research, not just biotech. That's pretty broad. So with drilled down with a lot more detail. So there's a lot of raw material for what our assets are at Stony Brook that are unique, that we can build on, where the opportunities are, for example, to hire more faculty in an area that's going to build out our greater capacity. One of the limitations of our ability to go after large grants is having enough faculty in a particular area to be able to do that. Just for example, I'll just give you this example. In conversation with the dean of the medical school, Peter Igarashi, we were talking about going after some large NIH grants, and he made the point we need to have, you need to have enough faculty with the what's called an R01 grant that you can pull together and say all of these people have R01 grants. Now you can go after a big center type of grant. So as part of that, for that reason, we have a new R01 training series that's kicking off this spring in a R01 boot camp that's doing that for that particular reason. So we can grow that base of researchers that we can draw on for the larger grants. And this is part of that strategy. Where do we have enough capacity to go after big grants, like the materials research grant, for example? We also have participated in SUNY's strategic research investment program called SUNY Strive. SUNY Strive has been in these 4 different areas. The quantum one is happening right now, and we have about 20 faculty on that, which is a lot of faculty to be serving on this SUNY committee. But the SUNY Strive has led to big investments by the state. And Empire AI is a great example. I forget what that investment amount was. It was like $450 million or something like that in Empire AI. So we are participating in these. Our Dean of School of Medicine co-led the biotech SUNY Strive effort. And so we expect that to the extent that there will be state investment in these types of research topics, we expect the SUNY Strive will help drive those. I will note that even though Empire AI ended up at Buffalo, which I think is because it's so cold up there, they don't have to spend a lot of money cooling. Our SUNY faculty member is the inaugural director as they search for a permanent director, Robert Harrison. So we have a lot of AI expertise, even though the actual computer ended up there in the tundra. Another example of investments that have led to really unique capacity for Stony Brook is this quantum internet testbed. And so right now, they actually demonstrated the ability to do this recently. They can communicate with quantum information over the entirety of this internet, which is just fascinating. Carl and I just toured there last week, and it's pretty mind-blowing. But nobody else has this in the country. Nobody else has this capacity to do this. And this was a result of investment by the state from the Long Island Investment Fund. In addition, that led to a $5 million grant that helped pull this consortium together. And we are positioning ourselves for a $120 million opportunity that is coming up in April. So that's the ability for these types of investments to lead to really significant research project outcomes.
And what's the main goal of quantum? Is that something like we're going to be utilized in years from now? Like, what are we at? G5 right now is going to be like G8, or when it comes to cell phone technology?
I would say 2 things. So one is that it's secure. So when quantum computers become more commonplace, the current type of cryptography you have is going to be obsolete. And so this is the ability for the Department of Defense to send information over the internet in a secure manner. And so we need to lead in this area because of the national security interests. Second thing is that the quantum computing is challenged because they can't scale it. And so the way that everybody agrees that this is going to progress now in the future is to connect quantum computers with networks. And this is the type of network that needs to happen, a quantum network, in order to interface those computers together. So you can make a large computer out of a lot of little quantum computers.
Thanks.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of innovation and entrepreneurship here at Stony Brook. So here's our vision to create an accessible, inclusive, and complete entrepreneurial pathway for students, faculty, staff, and the community. Foster innovation across disciplines, provide support for entrepreneurs at all stages, integrate the campus in the larger community around these efforts, and then develop a strong brand, recognizable brand for Stony Brook. So we have really great research assets and innovation assets. We have existing startup support through Long Island High Tech Incubator, through the R&D Park, incubators in certain areas, energy and information and so forth. But we need to improve in a lot of ways, and so our plan is to fill in those gaps, develop new initiatives, and I'll talk a little bit more about what some of those are. So we've interviewed a lot of students around campus, and this just gives you a sense of like the untapped potential that we have here in our students. So Sophia said, I have an idea for a biotech startup, but I don't know if there's anyone on campus who can help me figure out the business side of things. I wish there was a program that connected me with people who have experience in both science and startups. And Jared said, I built an AI tool. There's probably like 200 of these on campus. It could be useful for local businesses, but I don't know how to turn it into a company. Where do I go? Where do I get advice? And then this business and psychology major, I want to launch a mental health app, but finding technical co-founders is impossible. I wish there was a way for students from different majors to collaborate more easily. So this is we've done about 50 of these student interviews around campus to understand what is it like for you on campus, if you have entrepreneurial ideas and things like that. And so we're, working on building this collaborative innovation ecosystem that focuses on interdisciplinary entrepreneurship initiatives. We really need an innovation hub, a dedicated space where students and faculty can collaborate, produce prototypes, launch ventures, get them information and advising they need to launch ventures, provide really robust innovation and entrepreneurship programming. So we should be reaching thousands of students a year so they know where to go. And I actually heard some of this, Dick, when we had dinner with some of the students recently. We talked about that, and they were like, I don't know where to go for this kind of thing. And then stronger external partnerships. There is an entrepreneurial community in Long Island. We have alumni in Silicon Valley who are reaching out, who want to do things with Stony Brook, so we need to create that larger ecosystem. Part of that that's been in place, that got put in place recently, is through the Long Island High Tech Incubator, who have these 3 venture fellows now in these different areas in biopharma and energy and so forth. So these are people who have really good experience, but they're still on the young side of things and can help advise and help create this ecosystem that we're after. I'm going to talk a little bit about our performance in our own intellectual property, Stony Brook owned intellectual property. So this shows the kind of major metrics, which is how many disclosures we receive, how many patent applications we send out in a year, how many patents are issued, and then how many licenses are executed. And these numbers are compared to the Autumn it used to be the Association of University Tech Managers, but now it's just Autumn. But essentially it's that organization. So we're about on par, average in terms of per $100 million in research expenditures, how many disclosures, how many patents, how many exclusive licenses, and how many startups are we seeing. Royalties are famously all over the place, but this is a primary, measure of the dollars that come in from royalties from our licenses and so forth. So this is our track record from 2020 to 2024. This is big because we had a $5.8 million settlement. A lot of royalties come from settlements, from litigation around patent infringement cases. And so we're actively looking for those. Where do we have patent infringements that we might, go after? And this shows where we compare to some of our peers.
The attorneys who bring the patent infringement, does that come out of our counsel's office, or do we hire outside counsel and they get a piece of the award? How does that work?
want to talk about that?
Well, that's mostly handled by counsel for the Research Foundation. I'm counsel for the state, so there's a partnership, but
So for the overall SUNY Research Foundation?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so their council handles it.
Yep. But in general, infringement cases are going to be handled by external counsel. There are organizations that we partner with that help us look for those cases and help understand, like, is there really a case here? Is it willful infringement or is it not? Right, that matters a lot. And then how deep are the pockets of the infringer and those types of things. So there are groups that have both the capacity to look for infringement, that have financial backing, so you can go after a case without laying out any money, and then share the settlement with those companies.
And when we get the award, it stays here at Stony Brook, or does it go back into the SUNY black hole?
The royalty or so it goes. There's a royalty sharing split that happens.
Got it.
Right, and so I would say the SUNY policy is very generous to inventors. So I'm forgetting the numbers, but I think it's 45% goes to the inventor. Nope, there's not many places that have that. So which is great. That's a big incentive for people to produce inventions, right, and to gain the royalties from those.
And Kev, the slide before on the patents, do you have a similar chart that you had on the next slide? And so how do we compare to other AAU schools? Do we do a good job in generating a lot of patents, or are we at the bottom, in the middle, when it comes to our peers?
So I would say, this Autumn has the best data on this, and so this is a comparison to all Autumn institutions per $100 million of research expenditures. So it's not limited to AAU, but it tells you that we're doing about an average job. But all of these metrics are are horrible because if you focus on patents, there's so many cases in literature where institutions have said, we need to do more patents because that's what leads to royalties and so forth downstream. And then they produce all these patents and nobody licenses them. So it doesn't really, so all these metrics are imperfect. I would say also last week we had 3 really top-notch experts from tech transfer offices around the country come here to us to take a look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and give us some advice about how we can do things differently. It was absolutely fantastic. And the data show that, the national data show that, it's a tiny fraction of the inventions that you're gonna make any money from. Tiny fraction. Most of them you're not ever gonna make money. Doesn't mean you don't do it, but it's not really, we're not doing it for the money, we're doing it for the societal impact. I would say that the university's research and discovery is relevant to the extent it gets out beyond the university walls and not just in publications. Right? It should have other impacts as well. So we look broadly at those impacts, but by and large, you make money off pharmaceuticals and biomedical devices to a lesser extent. And you don't make money on engineering and physics and things like that, largely speaking.
Thank you.
And we have a new strategy for how we're going to be doing these things. I would say that will be rolling out. It's a lot more lean. It's a lot more focused on creating impact. Allowing startup activity to happen and those types of things. And not whatever. So we can talk about that more if you want to. So we have had a lot of market success, as you'll see. Right, pharmaceuticals, but for the most part. We have a number of initiatives underway. So I mentioned we've hired a lobbying firm. We have planned an internship program with the political science department currently to place interns in Washington, D.C. And this is a pretty normal strategy. It's not radical, nothing new here. But those interns in Washington end up in federal agencies, in Department of Defense, and places where you want them, just like the person that you mentioned, right? So that's a long-term play. It's not going to help us next year, but it's going to help us 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Making investments in core facilities. We don't have centrally organized core facilities, which are a really important part of a modern research university. We are in an RFP stage for a research information management system, which is basically like, here's a front page that says, who is an expert in anything that you want to type into there. And we don't have that level of information now. We have Google. but we don't have this kind of thing. We are working on developing and rolling out a controlled unclassified information computing enclave. So our researchers who have a need for more secure computing environment can do that. And coupled with that, we are enhancing our research security so we can do more highly secure research. And we have dialogue and a strategy rolling out around moving down the pike to conducting classified research. How far we're going to go on that is a matter of question, and we're working hand in hand with SUNY Research Foundation on that. Growing innovation ecosystem, which I talked about, and there's a number of other kind of investments we're making along those lines. And then other types of strategic investments together with the provost and in faculty and helping groups come together to go after big awards. And so here's, again, just to wrap up, strategic priorities are to strengthen areas of strategic importance where we think we can really be on the map as a university, build better partnership with industry, develop a robust innovation ecosystem, really energize our R&D park / innovation district. We have an RFP about ready to go for a strategy consultant for our R&D park. So, I think that can be an engine of R&D and innovation for Stony Brook in the region more than it has been. Make investments in research facilities. Develop a multidisciplinary kind of center research culture. And this is a significant one to transform an institution from thinking about investigators and their expertise to thinking about where we have collections of expertise that all add up to something more than the sum of the parts. And so that'll take some time, but there's been a lot of headway in that. And then always and forever hire and support and develop excellent faculty. That's what I got. So
Very
happy to,
good.
if there's other questions.
Yeah, well done, Kevin. I have one other question for you. I'll put it up. So, did you see the New York Times story yesterday on NIH funding being cut?
Yep.
And they talked about how some institutions spend as much as 60% of the grants, the elite institutions, on overhead, which I think you were referring to before, HVAC, buildings, energy, utilities, all that. Do we have a handle on what our typical overhead is on a grant? Are we at that high level? Are we closer to 25%?
We are about 40%. Is that right, Jim?
Jack?
We've been
overall average.
Yeah, overall average.
All sponsors.
Yeah.
So if
so, for example, state caps it, or foundations might cap there at 10% of those types of things.
But if you're asking what our NIH rate is,
Yeah.
right, that's 59.5.
59.5.
Yeah.
Oh, so we are similar to the other elite colleges.
As our any place that's research intensive,
Yeah.
is going to be in the upper 50s or the low 60s. In some cases,
So if
up to the highest rate is 69.5. Research institutes, which are private things like the Scripps Foundation, they can be at 100.
So if Elon Musk has his way and recipients are limited to 15% overhead charges per grant, that would be a huge.
That would be a hit depending upon what they do with the money, right? So one of the questions is going to be, do they take the money away and use it for a different purpose? That's a hit for sure. Are they going to redistribute the money, towards other, research, which we may or may not be, who knows? So I think we're in an area of significant uncertainty. And I would say that this has repercussions beyond just the how it will affect research on our campuses and other research-intensive campuses, because universities tend to build buildings with the idea that they are going to be defraying the principal interest on those buildings by the incoming F&A that they're going to get from the federal government. It's a principal source. So now you have places wondering, can they go ahead with those construction projects? You also have bond raters and the bond market, which is going to say, is this going to disappear as a source of, revenue for these places? And if so, how are they going to pay their existing interest and principal on debt? So there's a lot of ripple effects, which I wonder if people are completely thinking through.
That goes to the points I was making in the beginning of the meeting, asking Dick and your team to pull these things together, because I don't think they do.
No.
And I don't think our congressional delegation does either. And so if we could simplify the message on the potential impacts, it may go a long ways towards educating them.
Yeah,
So-
we're doing that, and we're working with our congressional delegation on just that. As I mentioned, we just had a pretty deep dive conversation with them because we were setting the F&A rate, the new F&A rate, just a few weeks ago, and negotiating with Health and Human Services around that. And they were saying, we have to cut your rate big time, just because we do. After 2 years of accounting to figure out what our rate should be, how much space, what's the cost of that space, how much HVAC costs, how much administrative costs, all those types of things. It's a 2 year, maybe more than 2 years, I don't know, exercise, right? A really detailed exercise to say this is exactly the cost. And they go through all those numbers and they interview faculty. How much do you use this? Does anybody else use this that is not funded by the federal government? I mean, it's really detailed. And then, so we just went through that, and we did just meet with Lolota and Schumer staff on it. And they both weighed in on it. So we're going to refresh those and make sure that we continue to be in dialogue and give them what they need.
Very good.
But it'll be transformational if that sticks, I guess I would say.
Very good. Okay, well, I know you had to go through some slides quickly, but Braden, I don't know what we're going to be doing at the May meeting, but I think it'll be you, Kevin. But I think it'd be good for the council to get an update on what's happening at the research park and what's happening with the Advanced Energy Research Center and CWIT, because it's been a long time since we've had a presentation on those. And so
That'd be great.
We may bring you back and have back-to-back presentations on an update with those.
That'd be
Well, and
awesome.
then also the climate change.
And we should
The
probably,
governor's
you know,
island. I
do-
mean, Lord knows what's going to happen with that.
Right. So now we have agenda item number 2 for May, an update on the climate exchange. All right, I can do that.
Rachel?
Very, sound good? All right. Does Kevin, before you go, does anybody else have any questions for Kevin, either on the Zoom or Linda or Chris?
I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment. Kevin, that's an enormously excellent presentation of many aspects of research and innovation at Stony Brook. And underlying it makes clear that you have a strategic vision for how to get us where we need to be, and you're making core investments, you're making key decisions, you're seeking the biggest grants possible, you're seeking allies beyond the campus through innovation. It's a comprehensive plan. My predecessor said we're going to double research at Stony Brook by 2030, and that was a great goal that all of us endorse, and I believe we'll achieve it, but it won't happen by accident. It'll happen because of the initiatives that Kevin and his team have underway in alliance with our faculty.
Thanks.
And I'll just add some parts. So we have an office of proposal development that helps mostly with large awards. That was put in place before I got here. And that is, our faculty have the best support of just about any place in the country for going after those large awards because they're so hard to put together. It takes so much time. It's so complex. It's so hard. Faculty just can't do it by themselves. So we have a really strong office put in place by my predecessor that does just that. And so we're well served by some of the initiatives that came before as well.
Right. I think Linda, anybody on the Zoom have any questions for Kevin? All right. Well, thank you very much, Kevin.
All right, thank you.
All right. So our last item,
Katie, I'll
Yep.
call you back when I can.
we have a presentation on the School of Dental Medicine from Patrick Lloyd. And Patrick, not to give you the short end of the stick, but we're going to wrap up by 10:30. So you think you could do this in 15 minutes?
Sure.
And leave some time for questions?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So we haven't met before, Patrick, so introduce yourself like Kevin did as well.
Sure, I've been here about 2.5 years, and I came from Ohio State. I've got a little picture that shows how I transitioned to the East Coast from the Midwest. So I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'm still getting used to driving and some of the approaches that are taken here a little bit from the Midwest. So I say I learn something new every 20 minutes. So I'd like to lead with saying that very much like the university's strategic plan, we're poised, if you like, at a very special moment in our school's history to make some substantial contributions in ways that my predecessors might have thought of 50 years ago. So I'm going to lead with a little background about our school, some facts and information to educate you as to where we are, and then suggest what I think and my senior leadership think are our strengths, what are the major challenges, and what are the opportunities that lie ahead for us. So this just walks you through where I have been. So I was fortunate enough to be able to launch my career through the Big Ten. So I was chronically looking for a better football team. Ended up here at Stony Brook, so it's a good fit. But I've been fortunate to work as a dean at 2 other schools, Ohio State and University of Minnesota, under 6 different presidents, 6 different provosts, and 6 different vice presidents for health sciences. So I walked away from each of those with a tremendous amount of information and insight on a wide variety of subjects that I'll share with you this morning. I'll lead with this picture. I think I'm very special in my discipline as compared to many, because most of our schools, we now have 72 dental schools in the United States, those that are research focused have everything under one roof. I describe that as the optimum education, learning, patient care, and research environment where the clinical connections to the basic science yield all sorts of things, a few of which Kevin showed this morning. And we're very fortunate in our confined space to be able to educate students, take care of a lot of patients, and then provide research experiences for students, faculty, and build up our portfolio on campus. So this diagram, this statistics, if you like, describes our population that exists in our dental school. Right now we have 183 students earning a dental degree, but unique to our school and our campus, we have a collection of students who are simultaneously earning graduate degrees. And as far as I know, we're the only dental school in the country that offer dental students a chance to earn a second degree simultaneously with no additional cost. And we're focusing right now on recruiting students who want to become higher level dental educators, allowing them to take a master's degree in such a way that they could move on to a teaching or research career in a dental school beyond us. We have 88 residents. These are people who are already dentists who are going on for additional training. Our faculty, we have a rich faculty. Our faculty-student ratio is about 1 to 5. Unlike medicine, our students have to graduate to be practice ready. So in dental school, they have to cut, manage pain, relieve infections firsthand. And to do that, we need really tight controls over our students. And we have about 110 support staff that do stuff throughout the day to make everything work. They're our backbone. So on an average week, we've got about 533 people that are coming into the building to do one of those 3 things. Patient statistics-wise, this last year, I have one error on here, I'll point it out in a moment. But we have 12,000 patients of record, and last year we had 82,000 times people walked in our front door. On an average day, we see 327 patients. At Stony Brook Medicine, last year we saw 3,104 patients in the emergency department. We had over 1,000 visits in a patient's bed in their room in the medical center this past year. And this is the number, it was 208, not 434, where we went into the operating room to do something substantial. At Southampton, we did 108 cases there. We have a mobile clinic that migrates around Long Island. We saw 650 patients there. At the Children's Hospital, 154 visits in a patient's room. Our cleft palate, cleft team, 125 either recurring visits or new visits, and 183 operating room cases on children in the medical center. And then finally, there were 670 new head and neck patients that we participated in some capacity in their care, either managing a dry mouth from the radiation or chemotherapy, or creating a new nose for them, or a new ear, or a new way to swallow. So these are the ways which we right now are doing, and we're really stretched to the limits here. And we have a tremendous demand every day for additional care.
Hey, Patrick, stay on this slide. 12,000 patients of record, or
Yes.
82,000 patients. Are all of them sort of Medicaid type
62%
patients?
of our patients are private pay. 32% are on Medicaid, and the rest are on insurance carriers.
So 2/3 use our clinic as their dentist of choice?
That's right. If you ask them who's their dentist, Stony Brook School Dental Medicine. Yes, we're very unique that way, very different from Buffalo, where their Medicaid population is close to 82%.
And if there's a patient with some type of dental emergency need and they're in the hospital, we'll send our folks over to the hospital and work on them there.
Yeah, we have a resident on call who goes over Nichols Road safely and then cares for them over there, oftentimes right in their room. If they have something more serious, we have a treatment room in the emergency department to attend to things in an urgent way. If it's protracted care, we have them come back to the dental school.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
As Kevin pointed out a couple of these, this is a little history about what I'll call the fruits of our research. There was a time, and it was not that long ago, when we were in the top 15% of all the dental schools for NIH funding. But over the years, and I pulled out just 5 of the products that are on the market as we speak. And over the years, the products, and there's a handful more, over the years we've brought in $44 million to the university from our 48 patents. 21 million of which went to the university in some capacity. 7 million came back to me, to my school I should say, and the balance went to the inventors. So we have really good examples, and a lot of these are technical devices, and some of them are things that you would buy and just use at home over the market. I was at a dinner a couple months ago, and a dermatologist told me he writes at least 10 prescriptions for this every day. This is for acne. And it was invented by one of our faculty. So the bridges and opportunities go well beyond the borders of what you might think about your toothpaste and your toothbrush. Strengths. I like to say publicly, we are Long Island's dental school. We are the only dental school on Long Island to really take care of the public needs of over 9 million people. We're the single largest provider of dental care on Long Island, all the way from the Brooklyn Bridge to Montauk. This is a diagram of this past year where our patients came from. While I'm expected to see many of them, as you see here, the larger the circle, the more patients there are from central Long Island. But it goes all the way into deep to Manhattan, all the way out to the ends of both forks. And 5 people actually came from Connecticut to have their dental care provided in the dental school. I don't know if they swam over the Sound or if they took the ferry, but somehow they got to our school to get their dental care. So we clearly are a significant contributor to the oral health welfare of the entire Long Island. I like to say that we're a flagship dental school in New York. There are only 2 state dental schools in New York, us and Buffalo. We have the same tuition rates, but Buffalo has a higher fee schedule for students than does Stony Brook, so we are the least expensive dental school in the state of New York. We have a highly competitive applicant pool. We set a record number of applications this year in our school's history, 52 years, just under 1,500 for 46 spots. This year we had the highest average GPA of anybody that applied to any dental school in the state of New York. All 5 schools, we had the highest grade point average, with an average 3.85 for the admission rate. We filled our class this year in 19 days. Our average year time to fill a class was 93, so we have accumulated and got the best of the best students in our class. We are one of 5 health science schools on this campus, which creates great opportunities for us to partner. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're the least expensive dental school in the state of New York. The most expensive is NYU. They are 2.6 times our price. So the differences here are substantial. And then finally, we have developed the strongest relationship of all the dental schools with the State Dental Society based in Albany, so that we can leverage resources, get greater campaign support for what our future lies for us, and how we can better demonstrate us being a resource to the entire state. This pictorial represents the School of Dentistry over the last many years as we, like an amoeba, grabbed out and got space and took over buildings. This used to be the Marine Science Building, and we took that over in 78. In 87, we joined these 2 buildings together, which previously were connected by a boardwalk over a sea of mud. And then in 1973, we took over this building and we attached that with 92, and then in 2010. Over the course of these years, we've increased our student body by 200%, but we only increased our building size by 40%. Our clinical space has only increased by 75%. We are limited now by forests and the fact that we're a single layer, we have no basement, we have no second floor, we are just a one plain dental school. Challenges. Our physical size, as I mentioned, restricts our capacity to grow. This diagram shows the dental school here buried in the woods. I know when I was interviewing for the job, I actually drove by the dental school 3 times because I didn't imagine it would be behind that wooded field. And so we're separated by Nichols Road and then a ton of beautiful landscaped forest areas. We're isolated, therefore we really don't have the capacity to be as conveniently available as our patients need. Our challenges are recruiting clinical and research faculty has never been more competitive. We have 18 new dental schools in the last 15 years, and they're all in the south where the weather is warmer, and I can't do anything to make it warmer here. So to compete, we need resources and opportunities to show more of the things that I showed a moment ago. The ever-growing, the tuition, the highest, as I mentioned, we're the highest on campus, so we're 20% higher than the medical school. Our student debt levels are 20% higher than medical students, making it more difficult for us to migrate our students into underserved areas. Ever-growing number of patients, we get 25 to 35 calls a day for urgent care. We see 7. I don't have the student body, the facility size to take care of the people who depend on us for their urgent care. And finally, a limited capacity for special needs patients. Special needs dental care is a calling, it's a personal decision to be able to care for people who, through no fault of their own, can't participate as effectively as you and I. Our waiting list there is 10 months. And every 3 weeks, I get a call from somebody directly to my office, a legislator, a connector in the community, some affluent person who has a cousin or a sister or a brother or a friend who's 35 years old with an autism disorder and hasn't been able to see a dentist ever for their life and they need immediate care. Can I find some way to squeeze them into our facility to get that care taken care of? It shouldn't be that way. And then finally, opportunities. The quality and size of our applicant pool provides capacity to expand our class. I was at a meeting in a city last week. All the dental schools are represented there at the Penn Station, at the Penn Club, to showcase their outstanding students. And there were students there from other dental schools in New York who wanted a picture with me because they wanted to get in our dental school and they weren't able to. They went to one of the other schools. So we clearly are the first choice for most. We want to become a better resource for the state of New York. This image here is the state of New York, and the darker the area means there's fewer dentists than the federal government believes need to be had there. And by definition, these darker counties are places where there's one dentist for one dentist for every 5,000 people. Our standard for regular communities is one dentist for every 1,800. In this county, I don't know the name of this county, but there are no dentists in that entire county. So our intention is to work hard to recruit students from these communities so that we can help them get back to those communities after they graduate. We want to do a better job being able to meet the needs of Long Islanders again from edge to edge. Our goal right now with some new requirements for dental school education is to provide educational rotations for our students in health professional shortage areas. So in 2 weeks, I'm traveling up to Albany and visiting 3 of these counties to try to find places where we can send our students for 2 weeks or even a month to get clinical experiences, exposing them to career opportunities and help with the workforce. There's no way in my 5 dental schools that I've serviced, there's no way the workforce problem can be handled by anybody but dental schools. Not organized dentistry, not the federal government. For long-term solutions, it has to come from dental schools like ours. Increased revenue generating capacity by seeing more patients. We produce additional resources to support student scholarships, professor endowments, to fund research, and to kick back to the university that percentage of assessment they get from our clinic revenue. Discipline communication, discipline, NIH, and corporate funding examples that I mentioned a moment ago can grow. And finally, I want to launch a few new programs to support things that we now are being asked for by the State Dental Society. We're the only dental school I work at that does not have a dental hygiene program. It would be like educating physicians without nurses. And the State Dental Society has asked me to start a dental hygiene program so our students can learn together, to practice together, to meet the needs of the communities at large.
Are there any dental hygiene programs here on the island?
There is one at I'm still
Farmingdale?
at Farmingdale.
Farmingdale.
I'm still getting used to where places are. So I want to publicly thank President McCormick for being an educator on our campus. He's announced several times that our school has been there for a very, very long time. And I've had people come up to me and make suggestions on how it is we might be able to take advantage of some of these future opportunities. And then very finally, I brought along with me some pamphlets for you about our school. And contained in there the last 2 issues of our alumni magazine, which we send to most everyone on campus at high level, as well as all of our alumni, all the dental schools in the country. And I show this because I'm always trying to strike the right balance between making sure we serve the state of New York as a state-supported dental school, and simultaneously how we can take our faculty who have research interests in areas like AI and develop that into new solutions for broader problems to deal with people that we oftentimes have left neglected. So again, I provide a folder for you with some information about our school for your late night reading. I'll give you a call next week for an online quiz. So it'll be a chance for me to determine whether or not you see where we are. But it's a great chance to share with you some of the things that we're doing and what some of the things we might be able to do. Be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Patrick. And you did it in the requisite time, so thank you for that. Quick question. First, again, I've been here for a long time. I think there's been various issues with the dental school, and I've heard nothing but good things and how you've helped stabilize the place and put it on the right path, so kudos to you. Did we used to have, and do we still have, a mobile dental clinic that goes into underserved communities here on Long Island, minority communities especially?
So we have a mobile dental clinic that travels to, I think, 16 elementary schools. We send an advanced team beforehand so we can get parents releases for those children to be examined, and for their minor needs, we can provide that care right on site. For their more extensive things, we refer them back to the mothership, as I call the dental school, and then they become patients of record. We also go on, I think it's 10 homeless centers where there are families, where there are young children. That mobile dental clinic is overseen by one of our faculty, and we send our pediatric residents there, so they're beyond being a dentist, they're studying to take care of children, so it's a really nicely controlled environment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I got another great thing Stony Brook does that I don't think the average person on Long Island realizes, that we're doing these neat things in the community. Anybody else have any questions for Patrick?
My dentist is an alumni.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, growing up in Centeridge, I think for like 2 years, this was my dentist. So, thank you. Keep it up.
My dentist is an alumni too.
Yeah, I'm glad you made the observations about where we were, but that's not where we are anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it at all.
My first graduating class here, when the student leader presented to the audience in the room, he said that Dean Lloyd is the 4th dean we've had in our 4 years here. We need constant support, constant leadership, our capacity to contribute. We're in a recruiting mode. Right now, we're launching a search for a biomaterials scientist to support our materials research space that we're creating because of the governor's generosity for research development, a striated muscle scientist, and a neuroscientist to support our research agenda, allowing us to partner with at least 4 other campuses or other colleges on our campus. So look for us to be even more highly visible.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Does anybody on the Zoom have any questions for Patrick? All right, hearing none. So thank you very much.
Patrick, thank you for an excellent report.
All right, so that concludes our official agenda. Does any council member have any other business they'd like to raise at this time? Hearing none, I'll ask Rachel to send the 2 presentations from Kevin and Patrick today to all the council members. So we have them email. Our next meeting is May 5th, 2025, likely here, could change. And we already have 2 agenda items, but there might be something more by then, and the budget will have been adopted presumably by April 1st, so we should get a presentation on what actually got approved this year as well. So that's all set, Braden.
That will happen.
Agenda set.
And nothing will happen between now and then.
Yeah, probably not. So unless anybody else has anything else to raise, hearing none, I'll move to adjourn. Linda seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Our meeting is adjourned. Wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day, since appropriate color for Stony Brook. Go red.
There we go.
All right? Okay.
I'll see you Wednesday.
Very
We'll
good.
catch up
Good
on
luck
a bunch of
tomorrow.
things.